Welcome to Her Fantasy Football. You can hear us on Blog Talk Radio / Her Fantasy Football and on iTunes. Make sure to subscribe to us on herfantasyfootball.com so you can get our newsletter. Also, don't forget to look at our rankings before you set your lineup for week 3. And a friendly reminder, make sure to tune into our radio show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Network from 9 to 11 Eastern on Saturday night. Also, you can chat with us on Twitter at Her Fantasy FB and on Facebook / Her Fantasy Football. I'm your host, Courtney Kirby, and I am here with my sisters, Ashley Williams and Brandon Marianne Lee. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Oh, she's dancing. She's dancing.
We didn't even get that late of a start, Brand. You're already dancing.
Catch us on YouTube. We're there. I'd advertise it, but I don't think we should. All right. Week 3. Ladies, how'd you do in week 2?
Not my best week.
Not my best week either, Ashley, I must say. And I blame it on the NFL. I think it's not their best week. It's not me. It's them. Right?
Well, Zeke with the 0 certainly didn't help out. I can tell you that. Greg Olsen getting hurt, that didn't help. I had a few injury situations, which was not lovely.
Well, I mean, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this, and I think this is an important little quiz section here at the top of the show. Who is the #1 scoring quarterback in fantasy right now?
Alex Smith.
That's correct. Who's number 2?
Trevor Siemian.
That is correct. Who's number 3?
Carson Wentz.
Correct. See, this is crazy. Ashley, first of all,
Ashley.
way to do some research. Way to do some research.
We'll see notes later in this show that says this, I think.
No Tom Brady, no Aaron Rodgers. No, I mean, it's just insane. But the worst ones are actually running back and wide receiver. Who's the #1 running back in the league right now?
It's Chris Thompson, right?
No,
it's not Kareem Hunt either.
It is Kareem Hunt.
Is it Kareem Hunt? Yeah,
is actually the highest scoring fantasy person, including quarterbacks in the league right now, which is crazy.
We got 40 points in one game, so.
Right, but then he got 22 the following, so he did okay.
He did.
And that was in standard settings. And the guy also has 8 receptions. So, okay, so who's number 2 in running backs?
I want to say it's a Chris Thompson.
It's Todd Gurley. Then it's Ty Montgomery. Then it's CJ Anderson. Then it's Mike Gillislee. Then it's Chris Thompson. Where's Le'Veon Bell, you may ask? What about Ezekiel Elliott? David Johnson's on IR. Like, what is going on? Wide receiver. Who's the #1 wide receiver right now?
Is it Crabtree?
No. Yes, it is. Yes. Who's number 2?
Sanders?
JJ Nelson.
Yes.
Then it's Tyreek Hill, even though he stunk it up last week. And then it's Antonio Brown. But then it's Jermaine freaking Kearse. You guys, what is going on around the league? So it's not just your team, you guys. I'm literally naming people that you maybe took in the 10th round, 10th through 14th round, maybe, that are the top producers after 2 weeks of football. So don't lose your marbles. Don't throw the studs out with the bathwater. We got to just take a deep breath. Unless maybe we're talking about the Seattle Seahawks, but we got to take a deep breath and let it go.
And the thing is, too, is that the good thing about all of that is that most likely nobody else is playing those guys either. So it's fine. It's fine. They're all on waiver wires with their 80, 100 points. I mean, not obviously some of them, but, it's fine. It's fine.
Well, for some of us that are in really deep leagues that have really deep benches, some of them are playing those guys because they had to, and it was just a dart throw, and it paid off for them. We're all playing those guys, and you don't know who's going to boom that week. And for me, they're just not booming on my team. No.
And that goes along with like Russell Wilson, Doug Baldwin, Calvin Benjamin, Cam Newton. It's like there's plenty of guys that aren't booming that should be booming.
I mean, I had the debate this last night, as you know, you're putting your waiver wire picks in, and I'm like, I've got to replace Cam Newton, Alex Smith or Trevor Siemian, and I'd like debate, and that's a legit debate, and it is a legit, like, I'm not playing Cam Newton this week. I won't do it to myself again. I got beat out on the waiver wire with Trevor Siemian, so I was not pleased there. But I got to look for another option.
Did Carson get him? I think Carson really put in for Trevor Siemian.
I think, I didn't see who got it because I just
Carson went all in on my husband went all in on Trevor Siemian in his leagues this week. And I said, yo, I'm with you, but like you should really use your waiver wire picks on running backs and wide receivers, but he was just so dire. He just could not stop. He was like, no, I'm obsessed. He just completely believes in Trevor Siemian.
It's week 3. It's week 3. I'm sorry. As a Broncos fan, we all just need to take a step back.
I agree.
I disagree.
Well, we're going to get into that later in the show, of course. But I mean, I'm just saying that against the Bills, though, how many points do they need to score? 5? I mean, literally, you guys, they could beat the Bills by scoring 5 points, a field goal and a safety. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I'm saying they're not going to ask him to throw it 40 times in the game. That's all. I mean, that's unnecessary.
There is chemistry in the air with that team.
Oh, I agree with that.
I'm feeling it. I am feeling it. We'll get into it in the section, though, but
Trevor Siemian, MVP, baby.
There's some chemistry in the air with this team, Super Bowl champs 2017, right? The Los Angeles Rams.
Woo! Woo!
The San Francisco 49ers.
Yep.
Get it, Brandon.
All right. So I think this is finally a good matchup for the Rams in a way that we can get slightly excited. Todd Gurley has had good moments. He's also looked pedestrian, you guys. It's kind of gone back and forth, to be entirely frank. But one thing that cannot be denied is that he is a volume play, and he is at the top of the fantasy charts right now. So saying that you can trade high on him right now, maybe, but I also like, for who? I mean, at this point, for who? So I don't know how to feel about that. Last week, in fact, he was kind of the entire offense against Washington. He carried the ball 16 times for 88 yards and a touchdown. And then he caught 3 of his 4 targets for 48 yards and a touchdown. The running situation in the league, as I said, is dire right now. So I think you just hold steady and ride the Todd Gurley train if you can. Greg Zuerlein kicked for 17 points in week 1 and 9 in week 2. They should get excellent field position with San Francisco. So Legatron, go get it. I told you last week to do it. And man,
also I dropped Vinatieri for Legatron.
I think it's right because they're going to be able to move the ball, but they may not be able to get a touchdown. I think this is a legit kicker situation.
This is a good offense for everybody involved. Maybe not touchdown heavy offense, but they're going to get you the yards and they're going to get you the field goals. And that's money making to me.
And quick passes. Quick note on that is that I am outrageously high on Greg Zuerlein compared to our counterparts. I think I have him 10 spots higher than everybody else. And I think it's warranted. I don't understand why he's so low. So don't be surprised when you're looking come Saturday, Sunday, you're signing your lineups and he's not projected high. I don't know what the deal with the rest of the industry is.
It's sticker shock.
It's not a terrible matchup, but
it's a ramp.
It is.
Get over it, people.
The stats warrant the higher position. I think he's going to have a good game.
And by the way, I'm also going to go with the Los Angeles Rams defense again, going up against the San Francisco 49ers, who have only scored 12 points over the last 2 games combined. So
field goals.
That's pretty decent. Sleepers, Gerald Everett. You guys, I talked about him last week and it came through. So in week 1, he caught his lone target for 39 yards. And then in week 2, he caught all 3 of his targets for 95 yards. He looks super dynamic. However, he did leave the game with a thigh injury. He is questionable, so keep your eye on it. But he is a stash if you're in a weird tight end situation. So we'll talk more about that, I'm sure, throughout the show. Cooper Kupp, if you watched the game, he played amazing. He had this one like spin around move in this one play, and then another one where he did a diving catch that was almost a touchdown. But the problem is that Jared Goff looks at Cooper Kupp the way I would look at Cooper Kupp if I met him. It's with eyes of love and like he's a well-made steak. He has to stop that because that's how he's getting the interception. Like he stares down Cooper Kupp so that all the defenders know where he wants to go. He just can't stop staring at him. Now, hopefully Sean McVay is going to look at the same tape that we are, and he's going to say, Goff, can you please cut it out? Like, I get it. He's cute and he's young. It's fine. But stop it.
Did you know that Cooper Kupp and his wife moved in with Jared Goff?
No, really?
Yes. In this off season, Kupp moved in with Goff with his wife, and they could all be roomies so they could have this bond together. Clearly it works. So
yeah. I mean, I love it. The chemistry is real, you guys. There's no doubt about it. And he was making amazing plays. It just didn't show up in your box score. Don't give up on him. It's going to be fine. They're going against the Rams or against the 49ers. Jared Goff, again, this is a dart throw. It's the 49ers. Possibly this is more of like a DFS GPP player or a 2-quarterback league play. But again, if Everett's out there too, and if he can figure out how to not stare down Kupp, I'm kind of interested. If you go to Yahoo, they have Sammy Watkins and Robert Woods projected for more fantasy points than Cooper Kupp. And I just don't know what games they're watching. I don't understand these projections. It's very bizarre. I will say, though, that Sammy Watkins has caught every single target that's come his way. To be fair, he is doing a good job. Also, to be fair, he thinks the world is flat, which became a big news story today. And I just feel bad for these athletes. And I just am like, don't answer these questions about science. It's not going to work out. Like, why?
But didn't he also complain about not getting targeted enough?
Yes,
that typically is good.
Yeah.
For upside.
Yeah. I will say, though, if he has a killer game, he might be one of the few people on this team that has name upside that you could trade high on and not get low. And Tavon Austin, he shouldn't even be on your team, you guys. I don't understand. He hasn't even scored a full point in standard leagues. And in PPR, there was one time he got 1.8 points. Drop him.
All right, the 49ers, the Carlos Hyde team, because that's it. Mm-hmm. That's all you got.
But he's so good.
And while Hyde managed to be the only guy worth owning on the 49ers for 2 weeks in a row, he managed to nearly double his touches and his yardage, which means double his fantasy points from week 1. So there's a lot of crazy stuff happening in the NFL. So for that, Hyde is a starter, even though he plays for a terrible offense. You're still starting him. He still is getting you those fantasy points. So it doesn't matter. In the last 2 games, the 49ers have only scored 12 points, as we mentioned earlier. All of those points came from their kicker, Robbie Gould, which is not even enough fantasy points for you to pick him up and play him. Mm-mm. So no scoring is worth the 49ers. So back to Hyde. You can run on the Rams. Gore may have not had a successful week against the Rams in week 1, but Mac, another running back for the Colts, managed to get over 10 fantasy points. And Chris Thompson for the Redskins obviously had the 22.6 fantasy points in standard leagues. So there's plenty of points to go around. Anyways, I'm starting Hyde for sure. Pierre Garçon, let's see here. He saw 10 targets in week 1, but only got 5 in week 2. So I like Garçon, but I think it's too much of a risky play. And he's on the bench for me this week, you guys. Until Brian Hoyer can do something with his life, I think Pierre Garçon is too risky. The yardage is not coming for him where it's worth it to, some guys, like Antonio Brown, we talked about earlier, he's had a game without a touchdown, but he had over 100 yards receiving. So that's okay. Pierre Garçon is not getting that. So you have to just move on. People just break it. It's not him, just the offense. Brian Hoyer, has yet to have a touchdown of any kind. He didn't even have 100 yards last week against Seattle. And Seattle's really struggling right now. So that says something. It says something a lot.
Oh, man. Well, you guys, we are so excited. We have a sponsor that is backed with our show, and we are pumped. It is HelloFresh. And I actually asked to do this talk because I'm obsessed, and I am the oldest child, so I'm taking ownership. No, but HelloFresh.com, you want to go and check it out. And actually, if you enter the promo code HERFFB30, you're going to get $30 off of your first order. And my husband and I are using it right now because it's football season and my schedule's crazy and his schedule's crazy and we never have time to cook. But it is so easy because most of the recipes only take about a half hour to make. So if we do it together, it cuts the time. It's so super easy and we can actually make time to do that. We've lost a little bit of weight. We are spending less money. It is less than $10 a meal. I am telling you, you have to go and check it out. And just today we had this amazing steak salad and it was super easy. And I thought, why don't I make this kind of stuff on my own? It's chopped up shallots with vinegar and olive oil. And then you mix that up as a vinaigrette. And then you just put it in the salad. And then you had nectarines on top of that. And then just steak. Yummy, yummy, steak. So yeah, I just want to talk about it because I'm obsessed. 2 dietitians work with them and it's great. I know Ashley also uses it. I know Courtney uses it. They have family plans. It's kind of absurd.
The reason why you don't make it on your own is because you have to buy these huge, large portions of things because that's the only way they come in the grocery store. But with HelloFresh, they have it all separated out. So you get the exact amount of ingredients that you need to make the meal.
Yeah. So
no waste.
No waste. And I love too that it comes in these like paper bags. You feel like it's like all things that you can put in your compost box. Literally everything you could want in a meal delivery service is with HelloFresh. I'm not kidding you. You have to go and check it out. Also, you know, it's just light autumn meals that are so yummy with these nectarines and steak. You know, it's just like delicious, but it was still a salad. So it still felt light. It was really cool. So anyway, again, go, it's $30 off with the promo code HerFFB30. And I want to thank Courtney for letting me do this because I am personally obsessed and I made a request to do it because she usually takes this. But again, HelloFresh.com, HerFFB30 is the promo code. Thank you. It just made me feel happy inside. It makes me happy.
Absolutely. You
That's a genuine endorsement.
You still have some of that spinach in your teeth, Brandon.
I probably do. Oh no, I gotta floss.
I'm kidding.
My dentist hates me. Okay.
All right, you guys, our next matchup, the Baltimore Ravens, the Jacksonville Jaguars in London. Morning game, wake up, set your lineups.
I hate the London game.
The London game.
No British baking show.
I mean,
that's all I got.
It's just such an early morning.
Absolutely scrummy that.
And it's always Jacksonville. It's like
it is.
Poor London. I mean,
Poor London. But you know what, Courtney? No, they're not going to have a game on their hands today. This could get really ugly really quickly, to be honest with you. We'll talk about the Ravens first here. So Justin Tucker, always love Justin Tucker. Ravens defense, they're looking really good. And they're playing an interception-happy Blake Bortles. So this could be a huge day. Huge day for Jackson defense. I'm hoping I don't play my husband this week in our family league because he's got the Jacksonville defense. I'm pretty sure it's our league. And I don't want to play against whoever has Jackson's defense this week. We're talking like 30-point game here. I'm anticipating.
Jacksonville or Baltimore's?
Sorry, Baltimore. Excuse me.
Because Jacksonville
has a good defense too. I think they're going to have a good game too, and I'll get to that. But
fair.
So this is a double day right here for defenses on this matchup. But Terrence West, he rushed 8 times for 22 yards and had a touchdown last week. He also was able to catch 2 of his 2 targets for 23 yards. The yardage wasn't really there, but he scored. So you couldn't really be that upset. Now, Terrence West is dealing with a soft tissue injury. And in general, when we say soft tissue injury, this is when you run and hide because usually it's very bad news for you. He is day-to-day and he did not practice today. So keep an eye on that and what's going to happen there. That does make it a lot more clear as to why Buck Allen's touch count was increased so drastically last week because of he did incur this injury during the game. So, you know, West will remain the guy as long as he is playing. And while you may lose a couple touches to Allen, I wouldn't worry too much if West is actually playing. Now, Buck Allen, he rushed 14 times for 66 yards and caught 5 of 6 targets for 35 and had a touchdown. Yes, it was against the Browns, but still, I think we're going to see this production be pretty on par with him because, again, while West is the goal line guy, Buck Allen is replacing that Danny Woodhead role, and so there's plenty of room for both of them. So I like Buck Allen. Jeremy Maclin caught 4 of his 5 targets for 31 yards and a touchdown. Now, Maclin seems to be the guy that Flacco is looking for in the red zone. He has scored in both games, and thus far is the only receiver that you can remotely consider on this team. The only one, period. End of discussion. Brashad Perriman, he failed to catch any of his targets last week, which means that he now has only 1 catch for 5 yards on 8 total targets over the past 2 games. That is not good enough. I am sorry. We can't be on board with that. And Mike Wallace, he's only caught 1 of 3 targets for 7 yards last week, and he only had 8 yards the week before. So this is just really bad. Like Maclin is literally the only guy you could possibly throw to. Ben Watson, hello, we did miss him. He's a sleeper for me. He had a heck of a game. He got all of his 8 targets for 91 yards, which was shocking. I actually had him on my bench in my Dynasty League because it's one of those guys that you just inherited. And I was like, I'm not going to play I'm not going to play Ben Watson. But I should have, because outrageous, 91 yards. I did not expect that. Now, you may want to take that a little bit with a grain of salt because he was only targeted one time last week. He was the most targeted receiver last week. Sorry, in week 1, he was only targeted one time. So last week, he was the most targeted receiver. He had the most yards and the most catches. So I'm okay if you want to throw a dart throw on him this week, because I think Flacco is figuring out, again, his only options really are Watson and Macklin at this point in time. So if you want to throw a dart, especially if maybe you are a Greg Olsen owner, and that was a very sad week for me as well, that one hurt, then if you want, it's a deep, deep dart throw, but it's a tight end position. So I'm okay with you doing some crazy things. Bench, Alex Collins. John Harbaugh did suggest that he may have earned more playing time. He went on to say, like, if you're playing well, you earn more time. He rushed 7 times for 42 yards. How much is more playing time? That I don't know. That's tough to say. I think it'll be dependent on West, but to me, that is way too deep of a dart throw. So don't do that, and don't play Flacco.
Don't play Flacco. What about the Jacksonville Jaguars? The London home team has to be home for them.
Absolutely scrummy that.
Yeah. Now, Jags defense, as we said, I really like Jags defense this week. Again, this is a team that's a little beat up, that I don't love necessarily the ball security per se that they have. And I think Flacco's going to have some interceptions. So I think the Jags defense is a good play this week. Leonard Fournette, he rushed for 40 yards and had a touchdown. He had 14 carries in total. I wish that was a little bit higher, but that's not all that unexpected, as they were playing from behind that entire second half. I mean, they basically ran the ball like twice the entire second half, which is the Jags' MO, right? This is what we know that they do. So what we're hoping for here is that we have enough junk time, Blake Bortles, where he can get into the red zone, and so that Leonard Fournette can just run it in for a touchdown. That is what you are hoping for here, because come the second half, the Jags are going to always be behind, and they're going to have to throw, and they have to abandon the run to some extent. So that's just kind of the way that is. Now, Allen Hurns, of course, obviously with the Allen Robinson injury, it's Hurns and Lee. Those are your two receivers on this team. Hurns caught 6 passes for the game high of 82 yards and had a touchdown on 7 targets, but he did not have a single catch until less than 2 minutes in the third quarter. So again, junk time. But you know what? Be okay with this. This is what that whole Jags offense is. You are literally playing. The only reason you're playing a Jags player, other than potentially Leonard Fournette, is literally for junk time. That is it. So this is a game that you just can't watch. You just can't do it. And then Marquise Lee, he was at least targeted a lot. I mean, 12 targets. He got 7 of them for 76 yards. So at least we could take solace in the fact that the volume is there, right? And he's a talented player. So again, these are guys I'm okay if you want to do a serious dart throw for a flex on, because again, they have that junk potential. And then bench, just quick mention, Jalen Strawn was picked up off waivers from the Texans. This is of absolutely no fantasy value for you, other than the fact that you may want to know who would be replacing Hurns or Marquise Lee. And I say this because Hurns was limited in practice, so there is a potential chance that Jalen Strawn may see a little bit of action, but do not put him in your lineup. Do not do that to yourself. But it's always good to know who's the next man up in case you do need to run to waivers at a deep league. So
Jalen's ruining fantasy owners everywhere.
Pretty much. Do you think the Jaguars are ruining our relationship with London?
It's a chance. Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to put it on the Jags. I think there's plenty of other options, but I don't know.
I think people in London are like, why do you keep sending us the Jaguar?
I mean, if you want to encourage people to be involved with football, why would you send one of the worst organizations to be the home team?
It's really sad.
I wish they were better. I feel like I like the players on the team. Like I keep wanting it to be better.
We always say they're going to be better.
Their defense is better, though. Legitimately, it's better. They're not elite like they were in week 1, but they are better. So that's good.
Yes. All right, fantasy football fans, listen up. If you love fantasy football, then you need to try my new favorite app, Draft. It's weekly fantasy football, but not like the other guys. On Draft, you play real-life snake drafts with other people, just like in your season-long leagues. Here's how it works. It's a draft that lasts for just 1 week, and there's no management. Just set it and forget it. Once you're done drafting, that's it. No trades, no waiver wire. Draft even takes care of last-minute injuries for you. I wish other drafts did that. Drafts start every couple minutes, so you can join one right now. And the best part, play for cold, hard cash. Drafts start from just $1, so there's a draft for everyone. No salary caps. Play in real-life snake drafts, just like you play with your friends in season-long leagues. Come and join me on Draft today. Download the app anytime. Just search Draft in your app store and join a game in minutes, or play right from your computer on playdraft.com. Whatever you want. For limited time only, all new players get a free entry into a draft when you make your first deposit. But you have to use the show's promo code HFF. That's right. Play a real money game for free just for using the Her Fantasy Football promo code HFF on your first deposit on Draft. Just search Draft in the App Store or go to playdraft.com and play free for promo code HFF.
And I'm going to set up a draft, you guys, this week. So make sure to follow me on Twitter at BrandonHerFFB. It's really fun. Last week I got screwed by Ezekiel Elliott.
We all did.
But I thought that he'd be able to run against the Broncos. I'm the most pessimistic, worst fan ever, I guess. But yeah, so come and follow me on Twitter, and I'm going to set up a play draft this week. So check it out.
Woohoo! All right. At Brandon Her FFB. You can follow Ashley at Ashley Her FFB and myself at Courtney Her FFB. All right, we have game of the week, possibly New Orleans Saints at the Carolina Panthers. Not being sarcastic, this is possible.
Well, maybe.
Well, maybe. Maybe not.
Disappointed in my
yes,
book,
they have, but so have the Saints. So you never know. This could be the thing.
That is true.
Two bads come together.
Probably not, but we'll be optimistic here. So we'll do my starts. Drew Brees. It was a home game, so Drew Brees was going to play well. That's just how it is, right? With his home away splits, he always does well at home. So he completed 27 of 45 passes for 356 yards and 2 touchdowns. But sadly, it's an away game this week. So, and it's a tough matchup. So I would say you should expect about 15 points out of Drew Brees in standard. Well, it doesn't matter, it's quarterbacks, but in general standard scoring you have for quarterbacks, about 15 points. So I think you're going to get. Michael Thomas, he had, a decent game. He caught 5 of his 10 targets for 89 yards, but, we need a touchdown out of you, Mr. Michael Thomas.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, expecting a little bit higher numbers than that out of your top wide receiver that you drafted. But the good news is the targets. 10 times last week and 8 times in week 1. So the opportunity is there.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. This is what you want to see, right? And you see there are some top receivers that literally, I think like Doug Baldwin style is getting targeted 5 times. That's not the volume that you want to see. Then you're kind of chancing a few things here. When you're someone that's being targeted 10 times, at least the opportunity is there. So it's going to happen for Michael Thomas. It could maybe happen this week. We'll see. But the issue is my sleepers. And to make people angry, Coby Fleener and Brandon Coleman have turned into Drew Brees red zone targets, and it is infuriating. So irritating. We hate you, Brees, and them for it. Just saying, yes, I am a Michael Thomas and Ted Ginn owner, so I'm maybe a little more bitter than I should be on this. But hey, Fleener caught 3 of his 4 targets for 33 yards. Again, the yards is not what mattered, but more important is that he had a touchdown last week. And I'm completely fine with touchdown-dependent tight ends. That is what Fleener is this season right now. So if you need a tight end,
tight ends are.
For the most part, yeah. But Fleener for sure at this point is just touchdown-dependent. And I'm okay with that,
Unless you're Travis Kelce or Zach Ertz. It's
exactly.
all about
those are guys that are yardage.
Those guys are 90-plus yards a game. But other than that, come on now.
But Fleener is kind of it's Brees' target right now, which is interesting because we've waited, now to say, okay, well, when's Fleener going to have that season? And it seems like he's kind of coming to his own a little bit here. So maybe this is the season. So if you need to throw a dart, again, Greg Olson, owner out there, Fleener for the most part is not owned. He's out there to get. I'm okay with it. It's a bit of a tough matchup, but again, I'm not as concerned about matchups when it comes to touchdown dependent players, right? Because these are guys that it's just a matter of getting towards the red zone, which they're going to be able to get into the red zone. And then at that point, it's really, okay, who's he going to look for in the end zone? And Coby Fleener is who he's looking for. So I'm okay with the fact that it's not a great matchup on paper. Brandon Coleman, the other soul breaker, He hauled in 4 of his 6 targets for 82 yards and a touchdown. He is a flyer and might lose out on his role when Willie Snead comes back. But if you're desperate, Coleman is out there for the taking. He's only owned in 3% of Yahoo leagues. So he is out there if you need him. Ted Ginn, he has seen the targets, 6 of them to be precise last week, but he's only able to haul 3 of them in and for 24 yards. So you cannot play Ginn until he proves it to you, period. End of discussion. You can't do it. Alvin Kamara, he is a flex option, catching 3 of his 7 targets for 51 yards. But only if you're in deep leagues. You don't have to worry about the Ingram Peterson drama when it comes to him because he's just being used in a different fashion. So you don't have to worry about that. But when we talk about Adrian Peterson, the guy only carried the ball 8 times. He only got 26 yards.
I can't drop him.
You need to drop him.
I can't drop him.
You need to drop him.
I can't do it.
Why?
It doesn't feel right. Just doesn't feel right.
Really?
The second I drop him is the second he's going to start playing. It's just
hold on. You can't drop Adrian Peterson when he was physically threatening his coach basically on the sidelines. Like you didn't think that would
it's
like
the
not
NHL.
work out for him.
I'm sorry. Are there standards? Because I missed that if there were.
All right.
Yeah.
Win. That's
yeah.
true.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm just saying. I didn't know that Sean Payton could hate anyone more than Mark Ingram. Until Adrian Peterson
is all good news for Adrian Peterson.
Maybe it's
for Mark Ingram owners.
So,
well, here's what's so interesting is that when reporters were asking Sean Payton about Adrian Peterson, Sean Payton said, "I don't think we ever discussed featuring him like he was featured in Minnesota." And
of course not.
Lot. That says a lot.
But who cares? You don't have to feature him like you did in Minnesota. He was the only player in Minnesota. That's fine. But you can use Adrian Peterson. Gosh darn it. He's Adrian Peterson. Like ways that are conducive to him.
Producing. He wasn't producing last year. He's not producing. You do not need to use Adrian Peterson. You don't. We've had this fight all.
Make it work.
No.
Make it work, people. Make it work.
You don't.
Why?
You make it work. You bench Peterson and you play Ingram and you play Kamara. That's how you make it work.
I agree. Bye.
Peterson's not getting it done. And the fact that Peterson thinks he was going to come onto this and he, played it off like, oh, I know it's not going to be the same. Well, clearly he does think he needs more than 8 carries. And when you're in a 3-headed monster, 8 carries is actually a decent share of the load. And when you're only producing 26 yards, I'm sorry, it's not cutting it.
Some running backs need to get into a rhythm, and I think that's probably how he is, and that's how he's been his entire career, right? Because he's used to getting 20-plus touches a game. I get that, but now things have changed. You're on a team with Drew Brees. More than anything, it's just not a run-first offense. It's a passing offense. So,
well, and here's the thing too: is Ingram can also catch. Alvin Kamara is your pass-catching back. That's just his role, right? He's filling in for Hightower. They've always had that position there between Sproles, Hightower. What's his name? Reggie Bush. They've always had that guy. That is Kamara. He's separate. He's fine. He's away from the Ingram Peterson drama. Now we have these guys that need rhythm, but Ingram can also catch the ball. So when you're looking, like you say, Brandon, you've got a pass-heavy offense. Well, Ingram just naturally fits into that better than Peterson, period, because of that.
And Kamara. Like literally he's number 3 on this list in terms of fitting in.
Absolutely. So I will get off my rant of Adrian Peterson and talk about Mark Ingram. Because I can feel Courtney just being like, I will not drop AP. I felt that way like a second last year, and then he got hurt and made that an easier decision for me.
I have 0 Adrian Peterson in my life, so I got 99 problems,
totally
but Adrian Peterson ain't
not
one.
He is not one of mine.
It's just like when you have a boyfriend and you're like, God, my boyfriend sucks. It'd be so much easier if he just cheated on me so I could break up with him. That's what I need right now. If AP got hurt, it'd be easier to break up with him. But I can't.
It's hard to get hurt on 8 touches.
There's potential. There's a possibility it could get better.
It could. No.
I don't think it is. Well, okay. So let's talk about Ingram then.
It wasn't even getting better.
Okay, this is where my mindset is. So just let it be.
It wasn't even getting better on the Vikings.
You stop it.
No, thank you. It wasn't. How long have I had this argument, Brandon?
I know. I'm sorry. We do need to move on, but dang it, Courtney.
Well,
I'm not there yet, all right? I'm not there yet.
You don't have to be there. We are encouraging.
We're encouraging our listeners to be there.
If you need another week, that's okay. But listeners,
do as we say, not as we do.
Move on. Jeez. Break up with AP. But let's go back to Mark Ingram, right? He also only rushed 8 times. but he doubled AP's yards with 52 yards, and he caught 4 of his 5 targets for 24 yards. So again, I am confused why we still need to have these conversations. Granted, 28 yards of the 52 was on one play, but at the same time, AP could have broke off for a play and he didn't. So what I will say is that despite that, he did still play better than AP. And either way, you can only use Ingram as a flex until Sean Payton officially wakes up and reduces AP's targets even less than 8. I think he needs to be at about 5, maybe 4, maybe 0, but that's not realistic. So I'm going to shoot for 5 touches. And I'm done.
Well, now I have to talk about the Panthers. It's like another letdown for me. Thanks, you guys. Is Santa not real? Gosh. All right, the Panthers. Here we are. All right. There is no way about it that Newton has not been great this year. I get it. I own him everywhere too. So I get it. In fact, he has actually been really bad against really bad defenses. It's not even like he's gone up against tough defenses. It's not the case. It doesn't get any worse that the Saints, though, right? I mean, the Saints are the worst defense in the NFL. Like, here's the deal. If Newton doesn't do well against the Saints, we're going to have our AP moment, I guess, and we're just going to have to cut the umbilical cord and let them go. I mean, not let them go, but, find somebody to actually put in your starting lineup, which is really sad. He did get sacked 6 times last week, poor Newton, and that's never good for a quarterback who just got surgery on his throwing shoulder. And you can see that it's affecting him during the game. So they have to figure out a way to protect Newton for him to be as productive as we want him to be, because it kind of looks scary. So I'm not expecting Brady or Bradford numbers out of him for the Saints. I'm just not. But I think he'll do better than what we've had so far. So this week we're still playing Newton, Ashley. So don't fear. And then maybe, we have to move on. Calvin Benjamin, same thing. Benjamin is listed as questionable as well. He was held out of Wednesday's practice, but if he plays, I think you're going to play him. I think he's going to benefit from the Greg Olsen being placed on IR with a broken foot. We'll get into that later. Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Stewart, both of these running backs had a tough time last week against the Bills, but that we kind of saw that coming, right? The Bills are a tough rush defense. I would like to mention that Stewart has had more fantasy points than McCaffrey in standard leagues. I'm just saying, great value. That was the whole point of Carolina during the draft, is you got them for value. So you can't really get upset because you got them for so cheap. And that's where we are. So I think they're both going to be okay this week. But I like Stewart. I just do. My sleeper is the Carolina Panthers defense. We have them ranked 15th, so they're right at the sleeper point. And then Devin Funchess. I know I keep trying to put him in that sleeper category, and sometimes he disappoints us, but I think Funchess out of everybody is really going to benefit without Greg Olsen. He tripled his targets from last week and his yardage. So he's going up. So that is good. We like to see that. I think he will go up again. He's not going to triple it per se, but I think he will go up. I do. And of course, on your bench, Greg Olsen is on IR with broken foot. The Panthers expect him back this year, but we will see. Ed Dixon is the replacement, but he shouldn't be yours. No, he shouldn't. Dixon's best year was back in 2011 with 528 yards and 5 touchdowns. If you take that year out of his long career of 7 years, he managed close to 165 yards a year and 1 touchdown a year. So it's not good, people. I'm not putting him in my lineup. I do think he'll have a better year than 165 yards and 1 touchdown without a Greg Olsen, but I'm still not banking on it. All right, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Chicago Bears.
Let's keep this pithy, okay? All right. The Pittsburgh Steelers drew a lottery ticket where they were able to play the Minnesota Vikings after last minute losing Sam Bradford. Both sides of the ball were completely deflated and upset about it. It was clear as day that Minnesota Vikings and their productivity nosedived on both sides of the ball. And still, Le'Veon Bell couldn't get it done. I am concerned, but obviously there's nothing you can do. If you have Le'Veon Bell, you're going to continue starting him. You are not going to trade him away. He is the man, and you're hoping that everything is going to work out better. Listen, over the course of 2 games, he's only scored 13.8 fantasy points in non-PPR leagues. And by the way, that's outside of the top 25 at his position. And in PPR, he scored 20.8 points, 0 touchdowns scored. Listen, hopefully he can get it done against Chicago. I'm not entirely sure. We thought maybe he'd start slow, but this is even shocking to me. Again, not much you can do. Antonio Brown is a stud. Last week, he only went 62 yards, but he had 11 targets in each outing. Minnesota keyed in on him, so they just went other places. It was easy peasy. No worries there. Pittsburgh Steelers defense for sure. When you look at Mike Glennon and his 3 turnovers in the first half of his last game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Also, by the way, they look good. 9 sacks, 1 interception, 1 fumble, and 1 defensive touchdown while allowing only 27 points over the last 2 games combined. All right. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, they did start off again with the Cleveland Browns and Minnesota without Sam Bradford and with Case Keenum. So take it as you will, but I'm just putting it out there. Sleepers, we're going to say Ben Roethlisberger. Why? Because it's on the road. You guys, you cannot deny about his home and away splits. It's really scary. I think he should be okay against Chicago, but I could also see him just being pedestrian, frankly, which brings me to Martavis Bryant, who maybe also has home and road splits because he's attached to Ben Roethlisberger. And he's going to be a boom bust player. He did have that touchdown last week, which was great. It was good to see that at home. No surprise there, everybody. Again, you could almost probably just start Martavis Bryant at home and not start on the road and probably hit more often than miss on that. So unfortunately, that's who he is. Again, he is not the number 1 wide receiver there. That is clearly Antonio Brown, but he did get a chance last week. Jesse James did crash down to earth, but I'm going to tell you, though, he's still caught 4 of his 5 targets. He's going to be involved with the game plan. I think that he's not a terrible option moving forward. Man, bringing Vance McDonald to town. That worked. Chris Boswell. Can a kicker have home road splits? Because it's interesting. In week 1, he scored 3 points, and in week 2, he scored 16 points. So there you go. We're all attached to Ben Roethlisberger and what he does on the road. Juju Smith-Schuster got a touchdown, but it's actually Eli Rogers who's been playing on a higher percentage of snaps. He's also had a higher percentage of the targets than even Martavis Bryant. If you want a really deep sleeper, if you're in a deep league, I'm going to actually offer up Eli Rogers as a kind of buy low, he's still there candidate. He is actually on the field right now the majority of the time on 56.7% of the snaps, and he has gotten 18.2% of the targets. Meanwhile, Martavis Bryant's only gotten 12.1%. So that's intriguing to me. In terms of the Bears, well, Jordan Howard was seen with a sling on his right arm after the game last week. That could explain why his snap count went down and below the mark of Tarik Cohen, or it could be the game script. But I will say that either way, what we saw was Tarik Cohen should not be a 3-down back, which I already told you. The productivity was just not as high. He should not be carrying the ball between the tackles, but he is the guy that I would play if I had to choose between the 2 of them in any setting this week. I'm not quite sure Jordan Howard's 100%. However, in good news, the offensive coordinator blames the line, not Jordan Howard, for his decrease in yards per carry. And they think that he's actually running really hard. They hope that he's going to play on Sunday. Either way, I would really try to find another option, you guys. I think they're trying to also get him healthy. So I think this is a delicate balance. Tarik Cohen, I think you can play. I think he's the guy who's going to be carrying the ball right now, again, because of Howard's injury, and he is good, especially in the passing game. Marcus Wheaton, though, this is intriguing. This is technically his revenge game, but he's not quite back from breaking his pinky finger. They think maybe he'll come back. He is practicing, so keep an eye on that. Maybe that's a weird GPP flyer for people that play DFS. Kendall Wright is the guy, unquestionably, that Mike Glennon goes to. He also stood up for Mike Glennon, by the way, to the press, which, of course, will garner more targets. So we love that. He caught a season high 7 catches. It was only for 69 yards in week 2, but still, that's a lot of catches for anyone, especially in a PPR league. And Zach Miller, if you're super desperate, he has 15 targets over 2 outings. Mike Glennon, stop yourself. Listen, John Fox isn't going to go over to Trubisky because he's really conservative coach and he's not going to do it. But if you watch that game at the beginning, especially, Glennon was struggling. I'm intrigued by Trubisky. I think that if you are in another like super duper league, this is a time to get Trubisky for free on free agency, not on waivers. Just like right now, today, go pick him up if he's there. I think Trubisky's really good. So I'm intrigued by what happens. Don't start Connor Barth or their defense, please.
Well, it doesn't matter which quarterback they play when they drop as many balls as they do.
That too. I mean, there are a lot of struggles
receiver
here.
Play, outrageous.
Outrageous. And the offensive line play. The offensive coordinator said the same thing for Jordan Howard. I mean, it's just like the people that need to be making the plays are not making the plays. And a lot of people are really, working hard, but that will affect everything. But the turnovers are really bad too. I mean, that is on Mike Glennon. Glennon's not like fantastic. But yeah, but they're not going away from him anytime soon. I stand by that. They're just not. He did throw for over 300 yards, you guys. So
yeah. Boom. All right. The Denver Broncos, the Buffalo Bills.
Well, this can be quick because despite a difficult matchup, you're still playing everybody. So Emmanuel Sanders, he caught 6 of his 8 targets for 62 yards and had 2 touchdowns. It was a very good week if you were a Sanders owner. And it was just a complete beatdown on the Cowboys last week. Sorry, I had to say it. We are Broncos fans. We've never shied away from that. So Sanders looked good. Good route running, good chemistry with Simeon. A+, must start. Love missing Sanders. And same goes for Demaryius Thomas, who caught 6 of his 8 targets for 71. He just looks like DT of old. Like the last 2 seasons have been a little bit disappointing, and I feel like we're seeing DT again. So I like that. It will be a tough matchup for both of these guys, but I think this is the week the DT scores. I do. Yes. So Bills are giving up the 6th fewest points to wideouts, but Sanders and Thomas could change that. I think they certainly will change that stat. Now, Thomas was limited in practice, but I think he's going to play. It's a hamstring injury, so keep an eye on it. But I think they're just resting him and being precautious. So I'm not too worried about that. CJ Anderson, woo! He found his groove. He rushed 25 times for an impressive 118 yards. And I say impressive because he actually looked good rushing, which I'm not always sold on CJ Anderson, but he looks good. I'm liking what I'm seeing. Now, some are concerns that CJ will not do as well this week because tackle Garrett Bowles is hurt. But Anderson was still able to produce last week after Bowles went out. So I still feel okay about it. The Bills front 7 is stout. That is for sure. But
I just went through my daughter's tablet of like all the photos that she takes. She takes photos around the house, like it's her job. And I was like, you can only keep so many. And one of the ones she wanted to keep that she took of the TV when Garrett Bowles got drafted and he's holding the baby up. And she's like, we have to keep that one. I was like, oh. And I've met Garrett Bowles and I was like, you better take care of my Jamal Charles. And he's like, I'll do my best. He's so sweet. And his girlfriend's fiance is so sweet. And the baby was there. They're such good people. And now they live in the town that we all grew up in. And they're such good people. So it was very sad to see him get hurt.
Courtney had her moment. She had her moment with him. But
I've had a few.
It's concerning. We want Bowles back. He's a great asset to the offensive line. But I think the CJ is still going to be okay. I will say, as we were talking a little bit earlier, that this Broncos team has kind of that 2016 Cowboys aura about them. I don't know. I just feel really good about the Broncos. Everyone's always like asks us because we live there, like, how do you think the Broncos are going to do? And preseason, I was kind of like, well, temper your expectations.
So like the Cowboys, except without the police records.
Yes, but I'm saying they just kind of had that. Everything was like clicking last year. Like they just kind of had like with Dak and like everything was just working. And, he was, making records. Not that Trevor Siemian is going to like break any records, but they just seem to have a good vibe about them. This is, I don't know. I'm feeling okay about it. And as we talk about Trevor Siemian, as Brandon went through the stats, I am impressed and shocked, quite honestly, at the fact that he's the second highest scoring quarterback right now. It's just insane. I even tried to pick him up in 3 of my leagues. And sadly, I lost him on the waiver wire, so that didn't make me happy. So, but you know what? As we talked about, I want him over Cam Newton because Cam Newton is not producing, and I don't feel good about it right now. I'm not going to necessarily drop Cam altogether, but I can't justify playing Cam again right now. I just can't do it. So Siemian was 22 of 32 passes for 231 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception last week. He had 2 passing touchdowns the week before that. So the only Trevor Siemian and Matthew Stafford are tied with the most touchdowns this season with 6. So I am buying in. This, I think, is the year of the game managing quarterback shining between Siemian and Alex Smith. It is showing that good defense and solid, consistent play, you can win. So sleeper is really only Jamal Charles, and that's if you're in a deep ball, in deep league. He rushed 9 times for 46 yards, so he's a flex option at best. But he's got 5.2 yards per touch as his average, so that's pretty decent. So if he got more carries, he'd do well for you, but sadly, until he's getting more carries, he's on your bench.
And the Bills.
I have no starters for you on the team for the Bills. So all of them are benched. So we'll do really quickly. The Broncos D it's legit. They are a struggling offense right now, and to go up against Von Miller and crew, it could be a very ugly situation. So I did not expect Tyrod Taylor to have a good week this week against the Broncos. The Broncos D is going to eat him up. And that's not his fault per se. He only threw for 125 yards last week, but he was at least able to add 55 yards himself with his feet. Now, the good news is Coach Sean McDermott did say that Taylor is their starter and that they're remaining committed to him. Again, I hate that we have to keep confirming this, but my issue is I wish they would express this commitment and focus on other parts of their offense that need to be fixed right now. So that might help with their chemistry. So let's shift some of that commitment focus to fixing other parts of the offense. Because Tyrod, while not great, he didn't look that bad. He was the only part keeping that offense really going. Zay Jones didn't help in the sad outing last week. He only caught 2 of his 6 targets for a depressing 18 yards. So including not being able to reel in a potentially game-winning touchdown in the final minutes. It would have been a really tough catch. But hey, if you want to be an elite receiver in this league, you have to make those tough catches. That's why you have the Antonio Browns of the world, the OBJs of the world. They make those crazy catches. So if you want to be elite, you got to figure out how to make those catches. Until then, really, Zay Jones is really only a flex option, and again, in deep leagues. Jordan Matthews, he at least caught everything thrown his way, but he was only targeted 3 times, and he had 30 yards. And if you're only going to target the guy 3 times, you're only going to get so much production out of him. So again, he could only be considered flex in a super deep league, but you really shouldn't go that route. Now, Charles Clay is a guy that we have been pretty high on, but he, again, caught all of his targets 3 of 3, but it was only 23 yards. And I don't like him playing this week against the Broncos. He is temporarily on my bench for this week, and he was limited in practice, so that's also not a great option. Now, LaShawn McCoy was certainly a problem for everybody last week. He rushed 12 times for 9 yards. Luckily, he has 6 catches for 34, but again, that is not going to cut it. I do think he's going to bounce back this week slightly because LaShawn doesn't usually have bad back-to-back weeks, but it is the Broncos, so it's not going to be pretty. I would say flex only for LaShawn McCoy.
Wow.
All right. Flex only, but yeah.
All right, the Atlanta Falcons, the Detroit Lions.
Oh, let me make this quick because the Atlanta Falcons are easy peasy, guys. This is the game of the week. This is going to be one of the highest over-unders of the week. You want to start Matt Ryan. He's actually on pace to throw for 4,584 yards, if you can believe it. I don't think he's going to get that. But the point is that he's actually having a decent season. If you don't like Devontae Freeman, you don't like football. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. Obvious starter. Matt Bryant is an obvious starter. Dome kicker, kicking in dome on the road, too. Boom. No problem. Third highest in the league right now, tied with who? Greg Zuerlein. And Austin Hooper has the best matchup out of everybody. So he had that dynamic, obviously, for week 1. Week 2, it was a tough matchup. He wasn't as good. You guys, it's A-okay in week 3. And Julio Jones finally caught 5 of his 9 targets for 108 yards. He still hasn't gotten a touchdown, but this is the week. Sleepers are Mohamed Sanu because, believe it or not, you guys, he out-targeted Julio Jones in week 1. And then last week, he caught 5 of his 6 targets for 85 yards. He's the only person that's really benefited from Kyle Shanahan's departure. Mohamed Sanu is the flex that you need in your team. Tevin Coleman, he's a big play guy, but certainly he's not on the field as much, not even close. But even change of pace, he's a good guy to have. He keeps kind of making it happen, so I can't argue with it. On the bench is Atlanta Falcons defense because I respect Matthew Stafford, and I think they are also going to score a lot of points.
That's right. You better respect Matthew Stafford because he is starting. We have him ranked number 4 in our rankings, so this should be a shootout. As Brandon said, Rodgers threw for over 340 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think Stafford will do better than that. I like him a lot this week, you guys. Golden Tate last week. Tate was not at fault. He caught everything that was thrown his direction. He just only caught 4 balls because that's the only targets he got. They didn't need to use them. That's how bad the Giants are this year. With that said, Tate caught them all. So he saw 12 targets 2 weeks ago. I think he's going to see almost that many this week, and you're going to start him. Marvin Jones hit while the iron's hot, guys. If you drafted him, you should play him this week. Jones' numbers aren't huge, but he has had a touchdown in both outings. So I like him again this week for a touchdown and 50 yards. That's 12 points in standard leagues or 11 points in standard leagues. More than that in PPR. Game on. Golladay, I'm sure Golladay didn't like sharing last week with stupid Ebron. I hate that word, stupid. I would ground my children right now, but hate that guy. But he should bounce back this week and could be a nice flex option. As for Ebron, okay, so Ebron finally had a great game. Congratulations. Only took you a season and a half. 5 receptions for 42 yards and a touchdown. Congrats. I'm putting him as a sleeper because of that alone. But I would bench him if I owned him. I would never own him, but I would bench him if I owned him because the Atlanta Falcons haven't let a tight end catch a touchdown pass in the last 10 games. So for that reason alone, Ebron is on my bench. And of course, Detroit's running backs are on my bench. Still think these backs are not startable. I'm sorry. Last week they had their opportunity to rack up those fantasy points, but didn't do enough to be a starter on your roster. If I had to pick one this week, it'd be Riddick because I think it's going to be a passing game, right? So Riddick is the passing back. Therefore, I think he's going to be the best guy. Abdullah had a career high last week of 86 yards. So we know where his ceiling is, right? 8 points. Okay. Not good enough.
It's the biggest backhanded compliment ever. There was a headline that was like career high 85 yards. Everyone's like, whoa, that's brutal.
Not good enough.
Yeah. Detroit Lions defense, obviously, same as the Atlanta Falcons. Both defenses actually are doing much better than you would expect this year. Detroit's defense is startable in most weeks this year, I would say. This week against the Falcons is not an option. Sorry. I'm not messing with Julio and Matt Ryan. Not doing it. All right, we got the Cleveland Browns, the Indianapolis Colts.
And my boyfriend, Devontae Freeman.
Oh, that guy too.
Right. He's pretty decent.
Thank you.
Okay, you guys, Cleveland Browns, Indianapolis Colts. It could be a bonanza of defensive points. You guys, I am.
Who is on the Cleveland Browns now?
Wow. Okay, so last week a really weird thing happened. Kaiser all of a sudden had to leave the game because of a migraine. The team says that they were aware of his migraine issues beforehand. I find this really bizarre. They say that sometimes it could be 6 to 7 months between them. But how do you get a migraine in the middle of a game? And is this concussion related? I'm not kidding, you guys. I am concerned. More concerning is that poor Kevin Hogan, all he ever does is come in for someone who's hurt and always score a touchdown. Have you noticed that? This guy always scores a touchdown. And by the way, there are not a lot of touchdowns for the Cleveland Browns. And then he gets put back on the bench, and it just is what it is. But there's nothing you can do about that. I just wanted to laugh about it. Corey Coleman, though, unfortunately broke his hand again for the second year. How weird is that? So he has to have surgery. He's going to be out for at least 8 weeks, you guys. He's on IR. I mean, I guess if you have an IR spot, fine. Otherwise, I think you can drop him. 8 weeks is a long time. We're already in week 3.
It's not
I mean,
Greg
that would be
Olsen
week
territory.
11. Yeah. This is, or David Johnson even. And I still would drop David Johnson. I think that's going to be hard for him to come back. But the point is that this is weird and it's sad. So everyone thinks that Rashard Higgins is going to be the guy, mostly because he caught 7 of his 11 targets for 95 yards last week. He looked really good. But then what did the Browns do today? Because the Browns are going to Brown. They said, no. It's Kenny Britt who's going to be the starter, and Ricardo Lewis is going to be the starter on the other side.
Thanks, Browns.
It's the Browns. I don't know. I mean, listen, and in DFS circles, Rashard Higgins is going to be owned in almost every single lineup on the planet, and that's fine. He's cheap. He's probably going to be the target. I just think the Browns are going to Browns. And speaking of the Browns are going to Browns, Isaiah Crowell had 2 back-to-back tough matchups, right? I mean, it was really hard for him to play the Pittsburgh Steelers and then the Baltimore Ravens. We told you last week not to start him because it was going to be a tough matchup, and whoo, it was. But he actually went to the coach and said, I want more carries. And again, the squeaky wheel gets the grease in Indy, maybe, hopefully. So that could happen. However, a lot of people thought that David Johnson did a great job. And also, if you want to watch great highlights, watch David Johnson make a one-handed catch like Odell Beckham style. It was really cool. He's playing very well as well. So Duke Johnson. Sorry, I have David Johnson's injury. It will never leave me. I'm permanently scarred. But yes, Duke Johnson. On the bench, rookie David Njoku scored his first touchdown. Seth Devolve continues to play. They pretty much split the snaps, but either way, I don't think you can trust anyone, even against the Colts. And here's the thing about the Colts. We don't know what to do. So supposedly, again, this week, Andrew Luck is not practicing, and their whole team hinges on this. I don't know what else to say to you about this offense. Every week it changes. The snap counts change. The percentage of targets change. Everything. And by the way, the productivity off of those targets is definitely the biggest changing point. So I don't really have anything else to say, you guys. I think that if you have a Colt, you have to put him on the bench until further notice. The only thing I will say is that Frank Gore is only about 100 yards away from taking over one of the rushing titles. Hold on, I just printed it out. This is the one thing that I wanted to say. With the most career rushing yards in NFL history, he can take over Eric Dickerson if he gets 107 rushing yards this season. Or tomorrow. That's it. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Freaking Frank Gore could overtake Eric Dickerson. How nuts is that?
Gore is
he could also take over Jerome Bettis by the end of the year if he gets another 500 yards. It's crazy. So I'm just hoping the best for Frank Gore. But other than that, I have nothing else to say about the Colts.
So sad. Bye-bye. Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Minnesota Vikings. The Bucs. You're starting Mike Evans. You never bunch Mike Evans. I get it. He's going up against Xavier Rhodes. It's going to be a tough matchup. He's not going to give you Evans points that you want. I don't care. You're still starting him. Come on. It's week 3. Jameis Winston. This won't be the best game for Winston either, but he should see around the same fantasy points as Roethlisberger did last week against the Vikings. Around that 17 points. And that, you know what, is good enough for you. Unless you own Alex Smith, or Carson Wentz, you're rolling with Jameis Winston, all right? Your sleepers, the Tampa Bay defense. I'm putting them out in the sleeper zone. Sam Bradford's still day-to-day on whether he's going to play. Obviously, the whole entire team revolves around their quarterback. They were all crushed when Teddy Bridgewater went down last year. Now it's Sam Bradford. They can't control themselves. It's an emotional team. That's okay. That's all right. For the defense especially. That's why they're on that cuff right there at number 14 on our rankings. Deshaun Jackson. This is my feeling about Jackson. Jackson is a boomer bust player. Martavius Bryant is a boomer bust player. They're similar guys. Bryant did well against this defense. I think Jackson is going to do well against this defense.
Agree.
He had 7 targets last week. I think he's going to have even more fantasy points this week than he had the 2 weeks put together. I like Jackson. Jacquizz Rodgers, on the other hand, here's the deal. Rodgers was great last week against Chicago. 67 yards rushing and a touchdown, but the Vikings defense is a little bit better on the line, just a little. So if Bell can only get 9 fantasy points against the Vikings, I'm going to say Rodgers is no more than a flex this week. As for Cameron Brate, I love Brate. I don't know why he's not loved right now, but Fleener had a good game against the Vikings, but Jesse James didn't. So he's a flyer. We have him ranked right in the middle of the tight ends. It's tight ends. They're all freaking flyers. Let's not lie to ourselves. But that's where I have him. All right, Ashley, the Vikings.
So Bradford is not going to be a starter on your team, but I do want to talk about him first because everything hinges on Bradford for the rest of these notes, right? So Bradford's on pace to allegedly play this week. His injury is not, the ACL is fine. All the other ligaments are fine. It really is a bone bruise and swelling. So we're hoping he's going to play again. As of right now, they believe that he will play, but definitely keep an eye on that because that does have an impact for you between Diggs and Thielen. So Diggs hurt you a lot last week. In fairness, without Bradford, we can't really blame him. But this did teach us that when Bradford is out, Thielen is the one that you should be starting instead of Diggs. I will say that Diggs did have 2 big calls that were called back that would have added some substantial yardage. But overall, Diggs only caught 2 of his 6 targets for 27 yards, whereas Thielen's a bit more of a safe play, sans Bradford. He was at least caught 5 of 6 for 44 yards. So if you have to play one, I'm going to go Thielen if Bradford doesn't go. Otherwise, they're both a go this week. So Kyle Rudolph, he's Mr. Consistent. You can play him regardless of whether Bradford is there or not. He is a big red zone target for this team, especially with Bradford in. So again, like Courtney said, it is all tight ends to some extent are Flyers. So Rudolph's got a great schedule. He's a good option for you. Dalvin Cook, he rushed 12 times for 64 yards, which was not what you were hoping for, but he did nearly get a touchdown. So he would have had a lot better production if he was able to get that touchdown. Despite a tough matchup on paper, I do think he's going to bounce back this week and is an RB2.
Nice. The Houston Texans and the New England Patriots. Those Texans. Oh, they're back. They're so fun. All right. DeAndre Hopkins. We have him ranked number 15. When a guy is getting 16 to 13 targets, you have to start him. It's not an option. I'm sorry. He's getting targeted more than everybody else. You have to put him in your thing. Eventually, it's going to hit, right? It's got to hit. Lamar Miller. Miller hasn't been great, but he hasn't been awful either. When we compare him to the other running backs in the league that we've been talking about, it's not like Le'Veon Bell is blowing it up. David Johnson's on IR. Like those guys, Miller's falls in between, right? So I think he just needs to get in the end zone, just like the rest of the Texans. He just needs to get in the end zone. The Patriots' defense ratings are a bit inflamed because of Kareem Hunt on Thursday night in week 1, blowing up. I mean, along with everybody else on the Chiefs against the Patriots that week. But I have to say, I think that Miller's going to do better. I think he's going to find double digits this week. And whether that's 100 yards rushing or whether he finds the end zone, I think he's going to get that double digits. Texas did get Foreman more involved, and that's fine. I don't mind another guy getting more involved. The problem is they're getting 2 guys more involved, right? Because now it's just more risky now that they have this guy in Miller too. I'm not worried yet, but it's a yet. It's definitely a yet. There's things happening, and as we've seen on other teams, Cincinnati, Seattle, the Saints, plenty of others. When there's 3 or more running backs playing in the same darn game, it often doesn't bode well unless your name's Chris Thompson. So that kind of scares me. There's no sleepers. It is what it is. If you have Hopkins, Miller, you're starting them, and then your bench. Deshaun Watson. The Patriots haven't done a great job stopping quarterbacks in the first 2 games, but when it comes to throwing the ball, Watson hasn't been very good either. So only having 227 yards passing and 1 touchdown through 2 games put together is not great. So if Watson's going to be successful, if you're in that 2 quarterback league, he's going to have to be effective running. And I'm not buying into it this week. Houston Texans defense, love them on the bench. Ryan Griffin is their tight end. He's listed as questionable. He got out of concussion protocol, but you're still not starting him. But on a side note, Will Fuller is back at practice. He hasn't been cleared to play in week 3, but keep an eye on him. He is a boomer bust sneaky play from time to time. And this, throughout the year, it might be his time. Brandon, the Patriots.
All right, the New England Patriots defense. I mean, do I have to tell you to start them? Probably not. You should. They have not been good, though, you guys. They're actually outside of the top 25. They've been really bad. But I do not think Deshaun Watson is frankly ready to be a full-time NFL starting quarterback. I know that's harsh, but 1 touchdown scrambling for your life after a broken play does not an NFL quarterback make. Sorry. He has a lot of learning to do. Houston played Jacksonville and Cincinnati. So I'm not going to give you what the matchup is. It's not Brady, so whatever. Tom Brady's start. Mike Gillislee start. He's obviously the goal line back. He got a touchdown last week, 3 the week before. You're fine. Rob Gronkowski, if he is playing, then you start. He did leave the game with a groin injury. Supposedly, he's A-okay. He's back at practice. Everything's going to be fine. He wasn't a full participant. He was limited, but
I don't care if he scores that many points in the first half. I'm fine with it.
If he plays, you play him, you guys, and you bought him. So that's life, okay? Live with it. That's right. Part of the deal, everybody. We all knew what we were signing up for.
That's right.
James White. I don't know if this is his 11 catches is tied with LaShawn McCoy for the 4th most among running backs. His 115 receiving yards is the 2nd most behind, believe it or not, Kareem Hunt. Everyone just bowed to the greatness of Kareem Hunt, even in the New England Patriots write-up.
Chiefs offense.
Chiefs
touchdown last year. Ballin.
Chris Hogan, questionable, limited in practice with a knee injury. He went 5 of 6 for 78 yards and a touchdown in week 2, but then he went 1 for 5 for 8 yards in week 1. Boomer bust extraordinaire. Brandon Cooks is really disappointing. When your quarterback throws for over 400 yards and you get only 37 yards of it. The problem is, I told you guys what the strategy is. They just throw the ball at him and they get a pass interference. That's their strategy. That's what they're going to do all season. So I don't know if that's going to help you in fantasy or not. I don't know what to tell you to do with him, frankly. Rice Burkhead's boomer bust. And, Gostkowski's been kind of on or off as a kicker. It's just a weird world that we live in, guys. Patriots.
Miami Dolphins, the New York Jets, game of the week. Let's make this quick. Make it quick.
I'm choking up on the game of the week comment. As if that's a thing. So half this team didn't practice this week. I shouldn't say half, but the main guys. So I'm hoping that it's all just, precautionary, letting them rest a little bit. But JJ, he rushed 28 times for 122 yards. 28. That is some serious, serious volume. So yeah, I'll take that. The Jets give up the 2nd most points to running backs. So you should expect Ajayi to have another big week. Again, he didn't practice on Wednesday, but I think that's just kind of to be safe. Nothing to worry about there. Jarvis Landry, he also did not practice on Wednesday due to his knee. Again, I think we're going to be okay. Landry is still the main target in Miami. I know there was kind of those questions, and we were getting a ton of Devontae Parker questions last week. And here's the deal. The guy was targeted 15 times, Landry, and caught 13 of them. Yes, it was only for 78 yards, but that was 45% of all of Cutler's targets went to Jarvis
so crazy.
Landry. Jarvis Landry here, guys. Okay, so yeah, I will take that kind of volume all day, because when you have that volume, the play's going to happen, right? He's going to break away on at least one of those and get some substantially more yardage than even already the 78. So especially when they're playing the Jets. So Jarvis Landry is still a must start. Julius Thomas, he caught only 3 of his targets. He caught all 3 of them, but it was only for 26 yards. So you got to be in a pretty deep league to consider streaming Julius Thomas. I just think that Landry and Parker and potentially Stills are going to take this away, and that Thomas doesn't have the opportunity to really be targeted in the end zone. So don't really go there. Devontae Parker, he's Mr. Big Play. That is what he is. He caught 4 of his 9 targets for 85 yards. Casey Hayward was white on rice on Parker last week. So Parker should have a better chance of converting those deep plays this week. So I like his upside this week because, again, he's playing the Jets. But he was limited in practice on Wednesday. Again, I'm not too nervous about it. Kenny Stills is clearly the 3rd man on the totem pole here. Only targeted 5 times compared to the 9 for Parker and the 15 for Landry. But he did catch a touchdown. So he is somebody that could benefit from tight coverage on the other 2 guys, especially in the red zone. So he has flex appeal in deep leagues because, again, this is the Jets. So bench Jay Cutler. There are better options out there for you to play, like Simeon, Smith, Wentz. They're out there for the taking.
Like Josh McCown. All right. Those
come on now.
No.
All right. Austin Seferian Jenkins. Brandon, he's back. Brandon loves him. It's her favorite player in the NFL.
I'll never forgive you, Jets, for making me do this.
Brandon's Austin Severian Jenkins. Okay, he might be back technically to practice, but Coach Bowles said that it is too early to tell if he's going to be activated this week. So hold off a moment, people. They're waiting for the drug test results back. Just kidding. I don't know. But he's not technically back yet. Jermaine Kearse, best player on this team.
I think he's a must start.
Best player on this, one of the best players in the NFL come week 3. It's kind of crazy, but it is what it is, you guys. 64 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. What? I think he should be in your wide receiver 3 flex spot every week until I tell you not to. And really the Jets will tell you not to eventually, I'm sure. But right now, Jermaine Kearse should be in your lineup.
I don't want to interrupt you, but one of our listeners right now on our YouTube thing said Austin Severian Jenkins might not be active due to not being in football shape, actually. And that's my point, Michael. I'm with you 100%. This is always his problem.
This is what we're saying.
We're trying to be subtle, but you're right.
Yeah.
Someone else said it, not us.
He's a social boy on the outside, and it just doesn't translate well on the field. And it always is what it is. And that's, it's
Never.
too bad he's not a quarterback, Jay Cutler.
I don't know.
Yeah. Because you don't have to be football ready when you're a quarterback. So,
right.
But
I got no time
it is what
for
it
Austin.
It's tight end. It's kind of close.
Time.
It's kind of close. Mr. Irrelevant, tight ends. It's pretty close. As for running backs, Matt Forte continues to prove that he is the better back for the Jets. I know we all drafted Bulls. I didn't. I told you not to, but you know what I'm saying? Some of you did. But the reality is that Forte is better. We have him ranked slightly higher than Bulls. But Melvin Gordon had 13.8 fantasy points in standard leagues last week against the Dolphins.
You mean Bilal Powell?
Bilal Powell. What am I saying, Bulls?
You're thinking of the offensive coach.
I'm thinking the coach. And so no.
We've said Bulls a lot tonight. Yeah, Powell.
Yeah, Powell, excuse me.
Paul.
Powell. It doesn't matter. Yeah, we're done with him.
Ultimate disrespect
Bilal
by
Powell,
Courtney.
I'm done with you. Bulls, ultimate disrespect. That's right. But yeah, I think Forte can get 9 fantasy points this week again. So if that's good enough for your flex spot, feel free and put him in. On your bench, Josh McCown, although he's getting there, and the New York Jets defense, of course. All right, we got the Giants, worst team in the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles.
You guys, how many years have I been saying this about the Giants? And finally, people are coming to the dark side and saying, this is not working.
But they do it every time after they already drafted everybody that's not OBJ.
I know.
It's like, I have to draft Eli Manning.
I know.
Brad Evans, when we drafted him, he was like, oh my gosh, Courtney, you let me get Eli Manning for $19? I was like, yeah, I got Sam Bradford for $20, and I think it was a better deal. Thank you.
Yeah.
And here we are, week 3.
He is, woo! All right, so the only person that's impressed me on this team from preseason and now is a guy that before the preseason said there's no way I was going to get into this guy. Ends up Evan Engram is the best player on the New York Giants, bar none. I don't know what else to talk about. Literally, he's the only guy. Now, the Detroit Lions are notoriously bad against tight ends. If you saw that touchdown where he just kind of was like totally open and just walked in, it was almost a joke. But hey, you know what? I think this is a very interesting matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles. However, he is questionable and supposedly in concussion protocol, but then they say it's just precautionary. And I don't understand that. Like, you're either in concussion protocol or you're not. So I'm a little confused. Watch the situation. All I'm telling you is he's the only one I'm touching. Other than Odell Beckham, if he is 100% healthy, but he is still dealing with his ankle injury that, frankly, I want to remind everyone, that was a really scary hit that he took. We thought maybe he'd be out for the season. So you're welcome that he was able to play at all in week 2. Hopefully he's better in week 3, got the cobwebs off. He was able to get, he only played in 34 of the Giants' 56 snaps. They definitely held him back. But hey, if he's playing, you got to start him. Shane Vereen is a PPR delight if you were looking for someone deep there. Over the course of 2 games, he has 12 catches for 78 yards. No touchdowns because I can't get the red zone. But the point is that if you're in a PPR league, that has some value. You should not have Paul Perkins on your team. Supposedly they're going to get Orleans Darkwa involved. Stop what you're doing. No. And then we got Brandon Marshall. I don't know what you guys have seen in these 2 weeks that makes you think this is going to be okay at some point. He had 1 catch for 5 yards, or 1 catch on 5 targets for for 17 yards last week, 1 catch on 4 targets for 10 yards in week 1. I don't know what about that's okay with you. It's not okay with me. Sterling Shepard, though, should be on your bench if you have Odell Beckham. Because if Odell's not playing, looks like Sterling Shepard is the fill-in. If he is playing, you can't touch Sterling Shepard. It's very clear. Also, Eli Manning, I'm going to be fair with him. I'm going to be fair. Only he and Andy Dalton have been sacked on over 30% of their dropbacks.
That O-line is so bad.
It's so bad. But he also was sacking himself. I mean, there were times he was falling down when he wasn't even touched. It's all very weird.
Because he knows he's going to get
I'm not going to give him.
He's such a wuss.
He doesn't get full credit. He gets half credit. But I'll give him half credit for that.
75% credit.
Fine. The New York Giants defense, they're suffering too because they can't do anything. They're actually really bad. You guys are outside of the top 25 for scoring defenses on fantasy. And Aldrich Rojas, okay. You don't even know who that is because they don't score points. So you're welcome.
Thank you. Ashley, Eagles.
Zach Ertz, he's a must start. I mean, he's 97 yards last week and 10 targets. Must start. Ertz. Alshon Jeffrey, 7 of 13 for 92 yards and a touchdown. He will have a matchup similar to week 1. So I expect numbers to not be as bad as week 1, but somewhere between week 1, week 2. So temper your expectations a little bit, but at least we had some positivity with how Alshon Jeffrey played last week. Darren Sproles, he is the only rusher you can count on right now on this team. And he rushed 10 times and only for 48 yards and then 2 of 4 passes for 30. But that's all you're going to get. That's all that you can get on this team when it comes to a running back. He should have a decent week this week, so you can play him flex only. Carson Wentz, I'm going to say he's a starter. I'm going to say it. I'm going to go ahead and say it. 25 of 46 passes for 333 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had an interception, but I don't care. That's fine. Wentz, you can play him. Sleepers, Torrey Smith finally came to play and caught 4 of 8 targets. That doesn't mean much for you fantasy-wise unless you need a seriously deep flyer, but someone to keep your eye on because as Carson Wentz gets better and as we have some of these matchups with Alshon Jeffrey, I think Torrey Smith will come into play. We've said it for a while now. He's not quite there, but I think someone to think about. Nelson Aguilar caught a 9-yard touchdown at the very end of the game that saved that very terrible play that was going on because I had him in a flex. He's touchdown dependent guy at this point in time, and I don't like this matchup this week, so put him on your bench. Donald Pumphrey, just quick note, hamstring, he is on IR, done for the season. And LeGarrette Blount, I don't even know what to tell you about LeGarrette Blount because I don't think they know what's going on. And I don't think it's Blunt's fault. I literally don't know what to say. I mean, when offensive coordinator said that obviously it's his job to find ways to get guys on the field, and they said they do want to get him on the field more. I mean, LeGarrette Blount literally played 6 snaps, and only had 1 catch for no yards and no rush attempts. How he didn't even have a single rush attempt is beyond my comprehension. So you cannot play him right now. And what they're saying is they've got roles for all these guys between Wendell Smallwood, who you also cannot play right now, is on the bench, Darren Sproles, LeGarrette Blount. And what they're basically saying is that, they find themselves in a lot of 2nd and 12s, 2nd and 13s, 3rd and 14s that they can't run at that point in time. And so that's why you're not seeing as much action from LeGarrette Blount, but you got to bench him at the moment.
I feel like it's an Eagles thing, right? I mean, I don't know. And Eagles and the running backs really tick me off. They really tick me off. All right, we got the Seattle Seahawks, the Tennessee Titans.
Talk about a team that's ticking me off. I told you they had to do something this week, and they didn't. They didn't. I don't know what to do with them. So my only starter is Chris Carson. What world are we in where Chris Carson is the only starter from, potentially the defense, but even that I don't love this week. Chris Carson, he rushed 20 times for 93 yards, caught 1 of 2 for 7 yards. He's the only starter, the only one on this team. My sleepers, Doug Baldwin, 6 of 9 targets for 44 yards. Not great. Tyler Lockett and Paul Richardson, they're streamers. Lockett got more targets this week, 6 of 9 for 64 yards. But again, this offense is just struggling. So I don't love this play as much as I would maybe love Paul Richardson, because Paul Richardson, while only catching 2 of his 5 targets for 19 yards, he did get the touchdown. He is the big play threat. So for me, if I'm taking those deep flyers, I want somebody with because they both have really low floors. I want the guy who's got the higher ceiling. And for me, Paul Richardson has this higher ceiling out of the two of them. But either way, I don't like either of them. I think you should look elsewhere for a streamer. Jimmy Graham, just find a backup because he is questionable. He may not play with his ankle injury. CJ Prosise, he's not getting enough action for you to even consider streaming at this point. Thomas Rawls, the writing is on the wall here with Chris Carson. I mean, he played only 16 snaps compared to Chris Carson's 51. The production just wasn't there. He rushed 5 times and only for 4 yards. And Russell Wilson, even him, he was 23 of 39 for only 198 yards and a touchdown. You got to bench him. I mean, go get Carson Wentz right now. Play Carson Wentz over Russell Wilson.
That's right. All right, Tennessee Titans. Delanie Walker. Thus far, he's the 5th tight end in fantasy points because that's who he is. He's Mr. Consistent, and you need to keep him in and continue to start him. The Seahawks have yet to be tested by a tight end that actually is used in their game plan for an offense like Delanie Walker is. So enjoy. Murray, unfortunately, is day-to-day with a hamstring injury that he suffered early in the game last week. That means all of you that handcuffed yourself with Derrick Henry, insert here, please.
Congrats.
Congrats. Good handcuff there. Henry did great last week when Murray was out. So I think he will have a decent game this week against the Seahawks, who are just struggling. When you struggle on the offense, you tend to struggle a little bit more on the defense too. The Seattle defense is obviously suffering as well. Marcus Mariota, I have as my sleeper. I don't love Mariota this week, just kind of like I didn't love Mariota going into the season, but I think he might be productive enough on the ground to warrant a start in deeper leagues. He had only 1 passing touchdown this year thus far, but I think he might find the end zone running in. So I think he may be okay in those 2 quarterback deep leagues. Rashard Matthews is 43. We have him ranked 43. Eric Decker 50. This is just kind of not a great matchup. Most of the Seattle games have been low-scoring games. I think Rashard Matthews is the better wide receiver, so I like him more. I just don't love either one of them this week, and that goes for the Tennessee Titans defense as well. Corey Davis is out, you guys. I know, it's so sweet, rookie, so talented. He's out. Get him on your bench. Cincinnati Bengals, the Green Bay Packers. The Cincinnati Bengals, you guys. AJ Green, listen, this is it for Green for me. This is week 3. We need him to be quarterback, offensive line, and overall team proof from here on out. I'm sorry. I know that's a lot to ask for. Get it. And schedule proof. I get it. I totally understand. But I don't know what to say other than I told you not to draft him. You drafted him. You did it. You have to start him. It's like a Rob Gronkowski. He's questionable. You did it to yourself. You knew what you're getting yourself into. May the fantasy gods be with you. Tyler Eifert, on the other hand, he did not practice on Wednesday, and it's not a good matchup for him. He should be on your bench until he gets healthier and the Bengals get better. This is why I hate tight ends. I hate them. Always the number 1 person to go down on a team when the team stinks. Bengals running back, you play them at your own risk. Any of them. Cincinnati switched things up with their coaching staff, so I can imagine that Joe Mixon's going to be the guy this week. This should be his moment to shine. This is a great matchup for him to be the moment to shine. But, Freeman and Coleman dominated last week against the Packers. But don't forget this week before when the 3-headed monster saw the Seahawks did not do so well. So it's risky, you guys. It's very, very risky. Andy Dalton, for me, on the bench. He had a bounce-back week last week with 9.46 fantasy points. It was huge, huge. You're not starting him. Bench, as well as the Bengals. Come on, it's Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers.
Speaking of the Green Bay Packers, Ty Montgomery, again, the 3rd highest scoring running back in non-PPR leagues and the 2nd most in PPR leagues. He's still 20 points behind Hunt, though. Again, bow down to Kansas City. Bow down. So listen, they said that they're going to actually get him the ball less, and I think that could be an okay thing. I'm fine with that. I think they need to get Jamal Williams in there more. They said that they've kind of been playing from behind. They've had some weird games, and so they haven't been able to put in the personnel packages that they want. So I think, again, you do need to handcuff for Ty Montgomery because of his sickle cell trait, especially, and his usage with Jamal Williams yesterday. So go do that. But B, he's probably going to be involved anyway, and don't freak out. That's actually a good thing. Aaron Rodgers scored 16 points in week 1 at home and against Seattle, and 18 points on the road against Atlanta. He's a stud. You do you. Jordy Nelson, he did have to leave week 2 with a quad injury, and my husband almost didn't speak to me for the rest of the night. He was so upset. So a lot of you Jordy Nelson people out there were very upset, but it actually looks like he's on track to play on Sunday. Who's not on track is Randall Cobb, which is sad because it's hashtag year of the Cobb, hashtag mild salsa lady. So Ashley's upset over here, but it looks like he is hurt, you guys. You need to check out that injury report. On that note, that means that Devontae Adams is going to be A-okay, so you're definitely going to start him. Mason Crosby, listen, he hasn't missed a kick yet, but he's only had 2 field goals. Everything else has been extra points. It could be extra points again this week, but still, he's fabulous. Martellus Bennett, though, this is what's really weird, you guys. He's getting a lot of targets. He's just not doing anything with them. I'm concerned.
I don't know if Green Bay knows how to use a tight end, though. I don't know if it's him or the play calls, the routes. I don't know.
It's very weird, and I don't know how to feel about it. And I should tell you that he'll get more usage if Cobb is out.
Yeah.
But he's already getting a lot of usage and nothing's happening. So I don't want to give you false hope. So I will tell you, though, that's the situation. However, Geronimo Allison showed up and started playing. He's really just a deep league option, but he is on Geronimo.
It's a great name.
All right. Kansas City Chiefs, the LA Chargers.
All right. I'm not going to tell you that you have to start Kareem Hunt because you're a smart person who listens to this show. You know that. The second that Spencer Ware went down, we told you to go all in, and we just traded him on up on our rankings. No problem. So hopefully you have him on your team. I know I did. Yay. Same with Travis Kelce. We also ranked him really high. And again, the guy got over 100 yards last week because that's what he does. Cairo Santos is perfect on the seasons. The Chiefs need this win, and they will need him this week against the Chargers in a divisional matchup. Alex Smith is on the sleepers list. This could go either way. He was fabulous in week 1, pedestrian week 2. But still, his pedestrian score was still the 10th highest of the week last week, you guys. You may need Alex Smith regardless. And that's fine. Yeah. I'm okay with it. Tarik Cohen was a big disappointment in week 2, but listen, he's a boomer bust player. They didn't really need him last week. It's fine. They will need him against the Chargers. I think he's going to do really well. It looks like Jason Verrett is still out. One of their defensive backs who's elite, so get out of it. Kansas City defense, I'm not starting them against Phillip Rivers in a divisional matchup, and they're kind of just, they're doing their thing. Los Angeles, Phillip Rivers, per usual, great for 8 games, so go ahead and start him in the first 8 games. I've told you this since the beginning of the year. You're welcome. 17 points in each of his matchups. Melvin Gordon is amazing. Even if he is not getting it done on the ground, he does it in the passing game. You guys, trust me, other people are in worse situations than you talking to me about Melvin Gordon. I borderline want to block you when you ask me about him, frankly. Keenan Allen also. I mean, seriously, you guys, only 7 wide receivers have more catches than Melvin Gordon on the season. One of them is Keenan Allen. So you definitely want to start him. Tyrell Williams, though, has 9 catches off of 11 targets for 108 yards so far this season. No touchdowns, but they're going to need touchdowns to beat the Chiefs. It's interesting. And Hunter Henry, everybody. Now that Antonio Gates has his record, hey, Antonio Gates. It's going to be Hunter Henry's show, everybody. He had more snaps last week. He had more targets, more catches. It's the Hunter Henry show, like we said, but they had to get Gates that record. On the bench, don't start Young Hwa.
Heartbroken for him.
Because the poor kicker, oh my gosh, you guys, he's 1 for 4 on field goals. And don't start their defense against Chiefs.
Yeah. Boom. All right. The Oakland Raiders of the Washington Redskins. Those Raiders. Derek Carr, we have him ranked number 5. You're starting him. Marshawn Lynch. This will be a tougher matchup for Lynch, but you aren't benching beast mode long as he's sitting up. His dancing, Ashley, absolutely. With that hair rocking out on the sideline. He is so happy to be Raiders. I just love it. Good for you, man. Last week, he got his first rushing touchdown as a Raider. Congrats. Unfortunately, there was a guy named Jalen Richards. Again, that darn name Jalen is the worst name in the NFL when it comes to fantasy, of taking your fantasy points away from who you wanted to go to.
But he's my lover. I love Jalen Richard.
We don't care. Over 100 yards. No, I, it's fine. It's fine. It's just that, like Marshawn Lynch, we want him to be more successful. That's all. That's all. Yeah. It's like having a husband and a boyfriend. It's like you love them both, but you have to stay with the husband. That's the deal. All right. Brandon just had her face.
No
so Jalen Richards that came in and got over 100 yards and a touchdown as well last week. In good matchups, I think Richard could be a good flex. I do like him. As Brandon said, that's her guy. I get it. But not against the Redskins. I will not speak of Cordero Patterson, so don't even ask me questions about him in week 3. I will not have it. I would like to remind you he had 0.7 fantasy points in week 1. Okay? So stop it. Every year with this guy, I swear he follows me. Whatever team I'm covering, that man is there. Anyways, Michael Crabtree, love.
Great game.
I have him ranked higher than Cooper, and the matter of the fact is Cooper is listed as questionable. He's sore with a knee injury. I would like to make that the only reason why Crabtree is ranked higher than Cooper, but it's not. Crabtree just is able to get open. He's able to make big plays. He's not even a boom or bust player when it comes to big plays. He just gets it done. Michael Crabtree is a must-start. Cooper is a must-start. When if he's playing, he's in your lineup. We still have him ranked in the top 20, so let's not kid ourselves. All right, I'm not going to lie. Jared Cook was a bad call last week. I get it. I will admit it. I said I will omit it is what I wrote, but I will admit it too. But he's still seeing targets more than Cooper last week, and the Redskins just don't like covering tight ends. So I'm going to say it's possible that he could have a good week. And if he does not, I will never utter his name again on this show for the rest of the year. Jared Cook will be ex-nayed if he does not to get over, I will say, 7 fantasy points this week, which is more than a lot of tight ends because this is why I hate tight ends. And the Redskins defense is on the bench. I'm sorry, the Oakland Raiders are on the bench. But let me just tell you, it's not them. This is okay. We're getting into Washington Redskins territory, and this is very upsetting. Brendan has Kirk Cousins ranked at number 9. I don't know what she was drinking before she did her rankings, because there's just no way in hell that he deserves to be there. I would rather play Josh McCown than Kirk Cousins right now. It is looking. You stop.
I just dropped him in a couple leagues.
That's right. It's right. He's available in our family league. And it is looking like Jordan Reed's injuries are pretty serious. And without Reed, Cousins' security blanket is gone, you guys. He even threw for over 200 yards, not alone for not even a touchdown. He hasn't. No, it's stop. Just stop it. We all wanted it to happen. It's not happening. Happening. It's like AP. All right. I'll drop AP if we all drop Kirk Cousins to our second quarterback.
Well, I already dropped Kirk Cousins. Does that mean you're dropping AP this week? Still too soon?
Too soon.
Okay.
Week 4. Okay, week 4. Sleepers. I'm putting Chris Thompson as a sleeper and as not a starter, and this is the deal. Best production ever, and I totally get that. But he had 77 yards and 2 touchdowns off of 3 carries. I get it. The production's there, but 3 carries isn't enough for me to feel like super confident in putting my running back 2 position. I'm sorry. That's just unnormal. So I'm going to hold off for a moment, put him in my flex, enjoy him there, and just temper your expectations for him. Rob Kelly is listed as questionable with a rib injury. I can't imagine the Redskins putting him in on the field if they don't need to, right? Because they have that darn Samaje Perine that just likes to tickle himself in occasionally. Nothing big. You don't start him. You don't pick him up. But he's just there. He's just available. And as for Terrell Pryor and Jamison Crowder, I'm sorry. You can't trust either one of these guys until Cousins starts to play. And I own Crowder in every single one of my leagues. So this is very tough for me to say. I don't think either one of them are any more than a flex at this point. It is what it is. The Redskins defense is on the bench, but they actually haven't been that bad this year. They've actually been decent. It's just a really bad matchup. So therefore, the Redskins defense is on the bench. All right. Last game of week 3, Dallas Cowboys, the Arizona Cardinals.
This one could actually be interesting. Dak Prescott, he suffered an ankle injury last week's game. He is allegedly doing well and will be able to play, so I'm not too concerned. He was 30 of 50 passes for 238, 2 touchdowns, but also 2 interceptions. It was an okay day, not a great day, but with no run game, that's not entirely surprising. So play him if you need to. Cole Beasley, he caught 4 of 8, only for 33 yards. It's not enough to be a starter. It's not enough to really be a flyer either. Production's just not there. Jason Witten, though, Courtney, is week 4 when you're going to swallow your pride, admit that Jason Witten is a good tight end option?
No, it's just more reasons why I hate tight ends.
Okay.
He's one of the best.
Yeah.
Right. Ever. I get it. He's one of the best ever. I understand that. But it's just frustrating. I'm
going to go ahead and say even this year right now.
Number 1 scoring tight end.
Yeah, he's the guy. Here's the thing. Here's what I've been saying is that he just seems to have good chemistry with Dak Prescott right now. He was targeted 13 times. 13 times, and he caught 10 of them for 97 yards and a touchdown. It's an average mashup, but again, Olsen owners out there, go get Jason Witten. Go get him. He's had 156 yards the past 2 games and a touchdown in each of them. This is what you were looking for out of a tight end. So go get him. Des Bryant had the bounce back we were looking for, 7 catches on 15 targets. Not great, 59 yards at a touchdown. So it wasn't amazing. The touchdown did save your night. But the targets are there. He's had 24 targets the past 2 games. This is going to work itself out. I feel okay about it. Ezekiel Elliott had a horrible game. Horrible. Like, I knew that he'd get less against the Broncos, but I thought he'd get more than 8 yards. I mean, absolutely outrageous. He will bounce back. I don't think he's going to have 2 bad weeks. It should be an easier matchup. It's not going to be a cakewalk, but again, and just quick note, because we have to seem to always update on the legal status here. The NFL's motion to stay the preliminary injunction was denied. So that is at least good news for Ezekiel Elliott owners. On to the Cardinals. John Brown is expected to miss week 3. It does not look hopeful according to Bruce Arians, so get him out of your lineups if you ever had him in your lineups. Chris Johnson must just be on the Arizona Cardinals speed dial, because you got to love that the guy was not even on the team. They call him up, they sign him, and he was clearly the lead back. So I don't know what deal they have going on here, but they're just like, speed dial Chris Johnson, and boom, he's the lead back when David Johnson goes down. So he rushed 11 times for 44 yards. He was by far and away the best looking of the backs. Andre Ellington, he rushed twice for 11 yards, but he at least had 3 or 5 targets for 12. He's kind of pass catching back. Kerwin Williams, who was a hot waiver wire pickup, certainly disappointed with only 22 yards. So I don't love any of these guys. It's not an option where I would be looking. Perhaps more disappointing, though, was Larry Fitzgerald, 3 of 6 for only 21 yards. He did have an end zone target by Chris Palmer, but it was just thrown a little too behind him. So my biggest issue is he was out-targeted by the other receivers. Jerome Brown was targeted 11 times, J.J. Nelson 7 times, and Nelson completely went off. He had 120 yards and a touchdown and was this close to having a second touchdown. And Jerome Brown had 73 yards. So I'm just not loving this situation. Carson Palmer at least had a decent game. He was 332 yards and a touchdown, 1 interception. But, it doesn't need to look pretty for fantasy. So if you need a deep sleeper, I'm okay with it.
All right. Awesome. Well, that's week 3 for you guys. Thanks again to our sponsors, HelloFresh.com. Enter her FFB30 to get $30 off your first order. And to Draft, enter HFF to get a free entry into Draft. Or you can go to playdraft.com. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Also, you can chat with us on Twitter at HerFantasyFB for all your last minute questions on Sunday morning. We're there. We're available. You can also catch us on SiriusXM Fantasy Network Saturday nights from 9 to 11 Eastern. And other than that, good luck. May the draft gods be with you, because we're in week 3, people. It's time to drop those who we do not want to drop. AP. We're there. Until next time, no more faking it.